Christian Horner just triggered the most dangerous plot in modern Formula One, and this time, it's aimed straight at Red Bull. Why would the man who built Red Bull's dynasty suddenly use leaked data to engineer a comeback through Alpine with Briatore and Mercedes quietly pulling strings? You're about to discover how secret contracts, insider knowledge, and one explosive data breach could collapse Red Bull's dominance from within and rebuild Alpine into an F1 superpower. And here's the terrifying twist. The mastermind behind Red Bull's greatest victories may now be orchestrating its downfall, one signature, one betrayal, and one power unit at a time. Christian Horner's name has always been synonymous with Red Bull's F1 dominance, but behind the scenes, a different legacy is taking shape. After surviving a brutal internal power struggle at Red Bull earlier this year, Horner has shifted his energy to a far more calculated project, reshaping Alpine into a team capable of not just winning but dismantling the very structure he once led. This isn't rumor anymore. Confidential documents have emerged linking Horner to undisclosed Alpine strategy meetings, indirect stakeholder channels, and even private engineering briefings that appear to mirror Red Bull's core operating systems. The signs are no longer subtle. They're strategic and devastating. The catalyst? A massive data leak exposing critical Red Bull performance metrics, reportedly obtained through a now-departed simulation director with ties to Horner. The documents revealed not only engine integration details but key vulnerabilities in Red Bull's 2026 deployment strategy, information so sensitive, it could alter the competitive landscape before a single wheel turns. The fact that this data is now in Alpine's orbit, right as they prepare a full structural overhaul with Horner and Briatore advising from the shadows, raises the stakes beyond anything we've seen since the McLaren Spygate era. And unlike Spygate, this isn't espionage, this is personal. What makes this plot even more explosive is its timing. Red Bull's 2026 power unit, developed in-house with Red Bull powertrains, is still undergoing integration testing. Meanwhile, Alpine has opted to switch to Mercedes power, a decision many assumed was purely performance-driven. But sources now suggest it was Horner who pushed for the switch, knowing full well the limitations of Red Bull's hybrid systems. By combining his intimate knowledge of Red Bull's engine architecture with Mercedes' proven reliability, Alpine gains an immediate tactical advantage. It's not just a better engine, it's a tailored weapon against Horner's former team. And then there's Flavio Briatore, the reactivated power broker pulling strings behind Alpine's political resurgence. His recent appointment as a special advisor was no coincidence. With decades of political leverage and a reputation for cutting through regulatory fog, Briatore offers Alpine the ability to bend the paddock to their will quietly, legally, and efficiently. Horner may be the architect of the strategy, but Briatore is the executor. Together, they're reconfiguring Alpine not as a competitor but as a counterforce to Red Bull. A mirror image built to compete on every front: engineering, operations, influence, and results. What's quietly unfolding is a game of chess at the highest level of motorsport. Red Bull has speed, yes, but they're now vulnerable where it matters most: internal cohesion. Their power unit team is still learning, their aerodynamics team is beginning to feel the strain of expansion, and their political backing in the FIA is no longer guaranteed. With key personnel being quietly approached by Alpine intermediaries, and suppliers re-evaluating future partnerships, Red Bull is no longer the unstoppable machine it once was. It's a dynasty on alert, and Horner knows exactly where the cracks are forming. This raises a burning question: can Alpine truly become the next dominant force, or is Horner simply trying to settle a score? The answer may lie in how this project is structured. Unlike his time at Red Bull, where he worked under the weight of Helmut Marko and shareholder politics, Horner's Alpine vision is autonomous. He's building a team without interference, backed by a manufacturer desperate for wins and powered by knowledge that most team principals could never access. That freedom, combined with his deep experience, could be the key to flipping Alpine from underachiever to title contender. But here's the real twist: what happens if this plan actually works? If Alpine climbs the grid, if Red Bull stumbles under the pressure, and if Horner succeeds in outmaneuvering his former empire using their own playbook, what does that say about the balance of power in Formula One? Could this be the moment where we witness not just a rivalry, but a full-scale paradigm shift in how dominance is built and destroyed in the modern era? Inside Alpine's Enstone facility, change is happening faster than most realize. Under Briatore's guidance and Horner's influence, entire departments are being restructured under a new chain of command.
Aerodynamic development is now operating independently from Renault's traditional oversight.
Key hires with past ties to Red Bull, both public and undisclosed, are working in isolated skunkworks environments.
These aren't minor tweaks, this is a full transformation of Alpine's F1 DNA. What's being created is a machine optimized for agility, built around performance responsiveness and decision-making speed, areas where Red Bull used to reign supreme. But Horner isn't copying the Red Bull model, he's refining it. Stripping it down to what worked and rebuilding it without the political friction that eventually pushed him out.
At the heart of this transformation lies a controversial decision: Alpine's full switch to Mercedes power for 2026. On the surface, it appears strategic. Mercedes has reliable hybrid tech and proven integration experience.
But beneath that, it's a tactical strike. Horner understands Red Bull's in-house engine weaknesses better than anyone.
He knows where the cooling bottlenecks occur, how deployment lags under heavy corner loads, and where Red Bull's packaging compromises airflow. By marrying that insider knowledge to a third-party supplier with no allegiance to Red Bull, Horner arms Alpine with the exact tools required to exploit those flaws on track.
It's not just smart, it's borderline surgical. Meanwhile, Alpine's engineering roadmaps have begun to echo Red Bull's hybrid-era philosophy.
There's a focus on low-slung chassis profiles, vertical airflow exploitation, and aggressive energy deployment curves in traction zones. These are traits that made Red Bull nearly untouchable during the ground effect reintroduction. And now, Alpine is mimicking the formula, but with tweaks designed to improve tire longevity and straight-line efficiency, areas where Red Bull still struggles in variable conditions.
That suggests Horner isn't just replicating old strategies, he's improving on them. Alpine isn't building a copycat.
They're building a version 2.0.
But it's not just about engineering, it's about politics.
The FIA remains publicly neutral, but behind closed doors, the shifting allegiances are real. Briatore, with his deep roots and long-standing influence, is already nudging technical directives toward ambiguity, favoring teams that prioritize power unit independence and design flexibility. If Alpine continues down this path with Briatore pulling strings and Horner laying foundations, it's not hard to imagine future regulations quietly benefiting their architecture while complicating Red Bull's current structure.
Red Bull's once iron grip on FIA relationships is no longer absolute, and that's a silent, slow-burning threat. Perhaps the most fascinating angle in this entire story is Max Verstappen's position. While publicly committed, Verstappen's loyalty has always been performance-based. If Alpine becomes competitive, truly competitive, would he consider leaving Red Bull, especially if Horner offers a program built around him with fewer political chains?
Remember, Horner was one of the few figures inside Red Bull to shield Verstappen from internal power games.
With tensions still simmering between Marco, the shareholders, and Horner's allies, Verstappen could become the ultimate prize in this war. If Alpine even opens a channel, Red Bull's foundation could crack irreversibly. And what about the rest of the paddock?
Ferrari, McLaren, and Aston Martin are watching closely. Alpine's aggressive restructure, if successful, could trigger a second wave of F1 modernization, one where traditional models of performance development give way to decentralized, politically agile operations. That changes how talent is hired, how innovation is shared across departments, and how power is negotiated in Concord agreements.
Horner may not just be engineering a comeback. He could be redefining how teams operate in the next decade. Which leaves us with a final, chilling thought: if Horner succeeds in destroying the empire he built, what does that mean for the future of F1? Is this the birth of a new competitive order, or the beginning of a deeper civil war that forces the sport to choose sides? And here's where we throw the question to you. If you had access to everything Horner knows, every secret he helped design at Red Bull, and the chance to build a new empire from the ground up, would you take the high road, or would you do exactly what he's doing? What's perhaps most surprising about this entire situation is the relative silence coming from the media outlets traditionally aligned with Red Bull's narrative. In the past, any major shift involving Horner would dominate headlines, provoke statements, and trigger denials. But now, it's strategic quiet. Journalists close to Red Bull have gone vague. No strong rebuttals, no major PR spin, just controlled leaks, soft tones, and selective omissions. That's a signal. It means Red Bull isn't confident enough to attack Horner directly.
They're still trying to assess how much influence he truly holds at Alpine and how much damage he can do if they provoke him too early. In F1, silence is rarely neutral. It's usually tactical. Meanwhile, the FIA is walking a political tightrope. Publicly, they cannot acknowledge internal tensions. But Horner's access to regulatory nuance and Briator's backdoor connections puts pressure on them to play both sides carefully. If Alpine's development is flagged for scrutiny, the FIA risks appearing biased. If Red Bull's protests are ignored, they risk alienating one of their most powerful stakeholders. The result is paralysis. Regulatory decisions are delayed. Technical clarifications are vague. And the sport quietly shifts toward uncertainty, all while the 2026 season draws closer. For fans, this is tension. For teams, this is warfare under a veneer of diplomacy. The longer this plays out, the more vulnerable Red Bull becomes, not because of what Horner is doing in public, but because of what he's setting up in the background. Sources suggest key Red Bull infrastructure partners, including secondary suppliers and regional logistics firms, have been approached by Alpine-linked intermediaries offering long-term contracts with better conditions. If true, this would erode Red Bull's supply chain efficiency, one of the secret ingredients to their dominance. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Not sabotage, but strategic displacement. A slow, patient dismantling of operational superiority. And this kind of game doesn't end in press conferences, it ends on track. 2026 will mark a new regulation era, and Alpine is gearing up to peak at exactly the right time. Their wind tunnel correlation figures are improving. Their simulator metrics, re-engineered to reflect Red Bull's high-fidelity load cycles, are already showing parity in aero efficiency projections. And with Mercedes' power coming in, they no longer have to worry about the weak link that held them back for years. The timing isn't coincidental. It's engineered. Horner is building a competitor not for tomorrow but for the exact moment Red Bull is most exposed. What makes this even more compelling is the psychological toll it's taking on Red Bull's leadership. Christian Horner wasn't just a manager, he was a buffer, a negotiator, a presence that held together the egos and the chaos. Without him, every department at Red Bull feels that absence. Engineers must navigate politics. Junior staff don't know who to trust. Drivers wonder if the team's long-term strategy still has a clear architect. And that confusion bleeds into performance. You may not see it in the lap times yet, but it's there. Lurking. Growing. The irony, of course, is that Red Bull created this monster. By pushing Horner out of the inner circle, by underestimating his ambition and his connections, they gave him the motive and the space to strike back with precision. This is no impulsive rebellion. It's a carefully measured, long-game maneuver from a man who knows exactly how Red Bull is built and exactly how to take it apart. In doing so, Horner may achieve something rare in modern F1, a second empire, born not from luck or chance, but from vengeance refined into strategy.